With that, I will introduce Anat Baniel, right? All three of us met in Jerusalem at some point, and it was beautiful. So Anat, please come and do us the honor. Yeah.
I prepared a bio.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm building my presentation. I knew what Anat was going to say. Thank you, Anat, so much for this wonderful presentation. And the topic is from fixing to connecting, potentiating the brain for rapid learning and change through movement and relationship. And thank you a lot. You showed relationship very clearly. And thank you, Dr. Torres. I didn't know if I can call you Liz in front of everybody. It's fine. I was being careful. For organizing this conference and for your breakthrough work, among other things, in developing ways to see what is happening in the child's brain during intervention and also seeing what is happening in the adult's brain as they interact with the child and the relationship between the two. I think that's so wonderful. And I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Neil Sharp, who worked closely with me on creating this presentation. He couldn't be here because he's teaching a course. So I thought, Anat, you talk a little bit more about the schools. I just want to mention the ABC program. They call it Anat Baniel Classroom Program. We brought our work in 2019 to the Lloydminster Catholic School District in Canada with a request to bring NeuroMovement into their schools. We ran our program for 300 children through 2019 to 2021 school year. In addition, 6 children requiring educational support from an educational assistant, some with a diagnosis in autism, others whatever else, within the classroom. Each got a total of 20 private sessions each. We call it functional synthesis over a period of 6 months. The reason I give this number, because it's very low. The sessions are normally no more than 45 minutes, and 2 of the children in their, actually 3, wore sensors, Liz's work. The data is to be analyzed by Dr. Torres and her team soon. The school saw great outcomes summarized by the education director at the LCSD, who wrote, as education assistants learning to move from fixing to connecting and employ the 9 essentials, which I'll present some of them in a minute, of ABM&M, that's Anat Baniel method NeuroMovement. It was in my bio. I worked very closely. I did Feldenkrais work as a child myself. I consumed it. And then I continued and evolved it to what I call now NeuroMovement. So he said their expertise serves the school as a whole. So the work that we've done. Professional development for the educational assistants was the primary goal of this program. It is clear that in growing their competency, we decrease student time away from school, and the learning readiness of the classroom environment has substantially increased. This was one of the things I insisted on doing a whole system approach, but I didn't think that the work of the aides will have such a big influence on the whole classroom across the 3 schools. There is data to support this provincially as well. In a year when COVID impacted learning, LCSD did not see the learning loss that was so prevalent locally and across the United States and Canada. I offer as evidence of this claim the 3rd grade reading test results. Reading tests at this level have the highest positive correlation to long-term graduation statistics. It is also related to other factors such as incarceration and earnings potential. In this case, our grade 3 level reading results in 2021 increased by 4% to 95. Our baseline year was less than 90%. Again, there is evidence that the ABC program has had a positive impact on the system-wide. So I invite all of you to consider, and I know many people are already considering before this meeting, a paradigm shift that Anat has already spoken to. Anat named it empathy, I name it from fixing to connecting. Here is a short video that shows my first interaction with a 21-month-old child that was just diagnosed with autism. The purpose is to give you the feeling, I guess the brainstem part, of the work and a demonstration of the intentional shift on the part, my part, the practitioner, from attempting to fix the child to connecting with the child through movement and the 9 essentials. It also demonstrates the possible outcomes it can produce. That we heard earlier, that the possibilities are unknown. And it's important to know that until we step into promoting more possibilities, we just don't know the limit. So Jonathan, diagnosed with autism spectrum, no eye contact, refusing most foods, nonverbal, and does not respond to his name, does not play or relate with his twin brother or other children, repeated forceful involuntary arching, that's what I saw most. The father was holding him, this reflex, powerful arching of his whole spine, throwing his head back, hides under furniture, no prior intervention. Okay, we edited, the total session was 12 minutes, I think, and we edited down to 2 minutes. So it didn't all happen in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yes, this movement. Yeah, movement in his activities.
You see how quickly, I'll talk later what I'm doing with him, but see the shift. I'll show it later, but you see, I'm helping him do what he's doing. I'm not contradicting the action. Now, just watch it, I'll talk later. I'm speaking Hebrew. They're originally from Israel, so I spoke Hebrew to the child because he grew up in a Hebrew-speaking home. You see, never mind. No, not that. No, thank you. I want them to hear it. Look at the eye movements of the child. He's making sense of what's happening.
תיק את זה ביד הזו ותן לי יד הזו. יש לי אליך שאלה. יש לי אליך שאלה.
I think it's the end of the thing. Okay. Oh, okay. Outcomes after 7 lessons. I gave him the first session, then my colleagues gave the 6th lesson over 2 weeks period. So basically 3 lessons a week. And the lessons again are about 30 to 45 minutes. Great eye contact, better sleep, better appetite, answering to his name, making more sounds, including some words, playing with other children, fighting with his brother, which was a big deal because the brother was dominating everything, taking all the toys, so it was a hugely important change. In order to understand better what from fixing to connecting means and how to apply its principles and practices, we need to ask the question, what is the job of the brain? I'm a little intimidating speaking about the job of the brain, not having any formal degree in neuroscience, but a lot of practice and studying with Feldenkrais. So the job of the brain is to put order in the disorder and make sense out of the nonsense. The brain is an information system, not a mechanical system. It operates according to the, quote, rules of information system, which are different from the rules of a mechanical system. And I just want to say a comment, the tendency is to approach everything as if it's mechanical, because that's what we have mostly experienced from birth on, and our bodies are a mechanical system experientially, right? Because knowing and understanding the difference will inform us as how to approach working and interacting with a child or adult on the autism spectrum that will be most beneficial for them. Not our model how things should work, but how reality occurs for them. For learning, the brain needs new information. Very important. The source of information for the brain is not stimulation alone, but rather the brain's perception of differences in the flow of incoming stimulation. I contend that the brain generates information through the perception of differences. So when the brain is not good, or what Liz you call the noisy brain, not good at doing it, it doesn't have that much to work with, and it just becomes overwhelming. When we do not perceive a change in the flow of income stimulation, that part of reality does not exist for us. For example, if I'm in a very loud room and someone stands behind me and speaks softly, I will not hear them. Their speaking does not exist for me. It exists for them, but it's not in my reality. And I think that's one of the very difficult shifts for people to make, is to be with a child, with anybody for that matter, but with a child on the spectrum, and realize that what I see, feel, think, and think should happen might not even correlate at all to their reality. The earliest, continuous, and main source an opportunity to perceive differences comes through movement and the associated sensations and experiences, that means outcomes, that correlate to those movements. And we recommend Daniel Walper TEDx talk here, and you can go for it. When working with children on the autism spectrum, I noticed that most had significant motor challenges, and that the movements they were doing tended to be organized in what I consider an under-differentiated way that was described by others as clumsy or robotic. It led me to think of autism as a movement disorder. I propose that this movement disorder results from the brain's challenge in underlying function of perception of differences. This is so important that I want to reiterate it. While autism presents motor, cognitive, emotional, social, and behavioral challenges, rather than seeing or thinking of autism as such, in NeuroMovement we see it as fundamentally as a movement disorder associated with a disruption in the brain's ability to perceive differences that results in the above-mentioned challenges. Very important for me to say, it is absolutely not, I think I said this disruption creates an ongoing difficulty for the child in putting order in the disorder and making sense out of the nonsense on all levels: motor, behavioral, cognitive, social, and emotional. The child's current limitations, as extreme as they may seem, are not an indication of the intelligence of the child and should not be predictors or prognosis of the child's potential to learn and improve. They are an indication of the degree of disruption in the process of perception of differences. With NeuroMovement, we focus on potentiating the brain's ability to perceive differences rather than directly attempting to fix the presenting challenges. We are process-focused rather than content-bound. As we have observed over many years and with many NeuroMovement practitioners and Feldenkrais practitioners, this puts the child on a powerful path of learning. Our challenge is parents, therapists, teachers, and caregivers. We fix mechanical objects. In our relationship with mechanical objects, we manipulate them from the outside to bring about desired changes. The object itself does not learn, even though it might change due to what we do with it. There is no generative participation by the object we are manipulating. With a child, all learning and change is done wholly by them and within them. The child and their brain are the ones that create learning and change for themselves. They are the ones who have to figure it out, put order in the disorder, make sense out of the nonsense. Therefore, what is called for is to create the conditions and interventions done in a way that potentiate the brain in its ability to perceive differences and thus be successful in doing its job. By my observation, more often than not, the automatic tendency by all of us is to try and fix the child, try to make the child do and act the way they should or the way typically developing children do. Oops. I contend that this approach creates limitations that are then assigned to the autism condition. The resulting limitations should be assigned, at least in part, to the intervention. With NeuroMovement, we back off from trying to have the child do what they can't do. If he could, he would. If she could, she would. This is one of the things that I was never going to work with children. I was never trained as a PT. My background is in clinical psychology and dance. And they brought to me children. In the beginning, they were mostly cerebral palsy, not so much autism. And I just couldn't understand why people kept asking them to do what they couldn't do. I mean, it just did not make sense to me. Instead, we connect with the child where they are at the present time and provide conditions that enhance the child's ability to perceive differences. This wakes up an immediate process of differentiation, leading to spontaneous creation of new patterns and possibilities for the child. How? I'm checking my time. The 9 essentials. The 9 essentials, when we apply them to ourselves and in our interactions with the child, we connect to ourselves, we connect to the child where they are, and we help the child connect to themselves. The 9 essentials are conditions and ways of being and interacting with a child that wake up the brain and sharpen its ability to perceive differences. I formulated the essentials by asking the question, what about what I do works? In Dr. Michael Merzenich's words, the 9 essentials are the rules of brain plasticity in practical and understandable human terms, and they are supported by current brain research. The essentials can be brought to and applied in any situation and with any context and at any age of the child. I didn't do it for autism, but I've worked with a number of pregnant women for a variety of reasons, and it is totally possible to create connection with the embryo, and it gets responsive and expects certain things. Movement with attention to the feeling of self. So, movement, I say, it was what you said in your, and I've been saying for years, is the language of the brain. I just figured that's what the brain is really into. Movement is constant change to be perceived and felt. If Einstein, nothing happens until something moves. Feldenkrais's movement is life. Without movement, life is unthinkable. And I want to accentuate it. The movement is not a mechanical kind of thing, 5 times this, 3 times that. Movement is the opportunity to awaken the connection to the self through the sensations, through the feeling. That's, in my world, what creates the pop-ups, the changes, the miraculous things like you saw with the last video, or with little Jonathan. Variations. Variations, Anat mentioned it, it's change. We can introduce variations, which are absolutely the opposite of repetitions. And variations generate differences. When a variation change is not perceived, we can always create a greater change and amplify the variation or create different variations. And there's a research study there that you can look at later. Variations are like play, and play is joyful. That's one of the things that people forget to think about. What's the experience of the child when we're interacting with them? And one of the things that I tend to, when I work with therapists, they come to for workshops or stuff, I say, the child has an experience all the time. There are no breaks in their experience. So if we're doing with them something that is disruptive to them or having a bad experience, that is part of what they're learning and impacts the learning. For young children, play is filled with movement, and it is what healthy and their brains doing incessantly when they are well and awake. Repetitions, and especially lots and lots of repetitions, are the opposite of play and the opposite of what the brain needs when new learning and change are called for. Repetitions are useful for grooving in already successfully learned skills. Repetitions without new information get the child to learn their limitations, their failures, and they become experts at it. I have gotten so many children that are high expertise in the limitation they experience, and then there is the work that needs to be done to get them out of, and the belief systems they have, and the anticipations they have, and all that stuff. Lots of repetitions and frequent prompting also risks training the brain of the child to lose agency. It's terribly important, I think. Subtlety is reduction of force by reducing the intensity of the incoming stimulation, and that's emotional intensity, vocal intensity, force, mechanical force, all that stuff. We're making it easier for the child to perceive changes in the flow of what the incoming stimulation is. The Weber-Fechner law, we help sensitize the system in a positive way. I want to show you this video. It's just 1 minute, and just how I use, and by the way, my teachers do great work, but we just had those videos and we just had not enough time to work on new ones. So here we go. He's on the spectrum. They're from Turkey. Anyway, let me just put this. It'll give the information. Oh, this really has to be worked with. That's my first interaction with him. I couldn't do it today, but it has to be worked with. And look at the mother, how the anxiety, the father is holding his breath. Hey. You see variations. I bring variations in different ways. And look how it got his attention. And I matched the intensity, and look what he does. He gave it meaning. He's about to go into another cycle of his I'm going crazy part, and I caught that. Look at that, and look what he's going to do with it. He's making sense with it. And he's inviting me to clap with him. It has to be worked with. There we go. Let me do the next one. Okay. Slow. Fast, the brain can only do what it already knows, what is already grooved in. That is how the brain built and it works. I'm just going to skip a bunch of them. Flexible goals. So important. We have goal. But if he could, he would. And I was just thinking that by taking the path of connecting to the child, we give ourselves freedom to do things that otherwise would not fit into anything. And so start where the child is and create the same process that all infants, babies, and effective learners do. Discrimination, differentiation, integration. And you can do it through movement and the 9 essentials. I'll be done in 1 second. I don't have to give you the movement lessons,
Please
sorry. The essentials can be brought to any learning process and will form self-generating learners and actors. Because of the pandemic, we created an online, started working with parents that they'll bring the essentials and connect with the child through them in the daily life and the kind of spontaneous changes that were observed, that were happening. I thought it would work because I thought the essentials do not belong in neuromovement, they belong in how the brain works. And the changes are greater than I ever imagined. And what also happened, the parents changed, the caregivers changed, and the systems changed. And one of the changes is really a lot more well-being for everybody. So that I'm not going to do that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Anat, for a very beautiful lecture and for a very beautiful lesson. We will continue with a Q&A during the lunch because we have many questions from the audience, from the online audience. Last I checked, there were over 200 people, and they're very curious about many of these alternatives to develop agency and self-control.